Okay, this is a re-upload of my life story. There's going to be a lot of content in this video that may be distressing to some viewers. Watch this at your own discretion. This is going to be my life story, unfiltered, growing up in Queensland, Australia, mixed with all the issues I had in life to do with drug addiction, prison, mental health, and getting up to the person I am today. Please watch this video at your own discretion. This is going to be a very raw look into the inside of my life. This video may offend or upset some people. Let's get into the video. I was born to a mother and father, and my father pretty much instantly left the home I lived in, and my entire memories as a child was my mother selling drugs out of the house that I grew up in. I witnessed my mother being robbed for drugs and people injecting drugs in the house that I grew up in, and a whole bunch and host of things that a child shouldn't see growing up. My eldest brother committed suicide when I was 12, and my mother passed away to a heroin overdose when I was just 8. My eldest sister raised me. Once she literally turned 18, my mother had passed away and she took sole custody of me, and I was only 8 at the time. And growing up, having a big sister raise you was very different. It was a very different childhood. She did extremely well for practically a child raising another child. And I had another older brother who was also involved in drugs and crime at the time, and 2 other sisters who I lived with. Now, it didn't take me long to start getting amongst alcohol and drugs and offending myself, and within a very short amount of time I took off from the home, started living with friends, and that's when most of my problems started in life. Namely, incidents that would happen while I was from the age of 16 to 17 would be, I was living with a friend and we were committing crime at the time, and his girlfriend would commit suicide via hanging herself with an extension cord in the garage, and we would come home to find her, and my friend was not able to function, and I had to give her dead body basically CPR, or attempt to, for around 7 to 15 minutes unsuccessfully, and that set me on a pretty bad path with writing myself off with drugs and alcohol, followed up a couple of weeks later by a friend who was at the train station with us when we would all be drinking and under the influence of alcohol, and he was on the phone to his mother. He was using my phone at the time, and during his conversation with his mother, he decided to throw himself under a train, an express train that was coming past the station, and I still, to this day, hear the sound of his body crunching under the train and his body being completely pulverized by the train. And it sounded like, I can't explain the sound. It's kind of sounded like a car driving on a rocky driveway, but I heard his body get pulverized under the train and crackle and pop, and parts fly everywhere. And that was something that pretty heavily affected me as a 16, 17-year-old. And that's when the majority of my bad offending started, putting me in prison for the first time to get my first experience of boys' home at Arthur Gorrie Correctional Centre in Queensland. During my stay in Arthur Gorrie Correctional Centre, Queensland, I would pretty much learn to be an adult in prison. It was a very immature environment, very violent, and you practically learn to grow up, and if you don't hold your own and be a very immature person and react or act in a certain way, you will not survive in these types of environments. And by the time I was released to the community, I was not an adult who should have been released without extreme supervision, unfortunately. And that's how things go, unfortunately. By this stage, I was released from prison and I was a full-blown heroin and ice addict, and I was a violent offender who had no empathy for any human being on earth, and my sole priority in life was me, myself, and my drug addiction. I didn't care about anyone, and I was a very terrible person at this point in my life. I would end up meeting up with some older guys who were on a interstate crime spree at the time, breaking into jewelry shops and committing armed robberies, and I would join them in the crime spree, and by the time I would be apprehended, I would be found with a firearm and a large sum of jewelry. And basically, as I was reversing out of a hotel, I had armed police with assault rifles ram me off the road and arrest me, and it was extremely confronting. I can't explain the terror of men ramming you off the road and then getting out of the car with assault rifles aimed at you. And as an adult now, I can be honest and say I'm very grateful that it happened at that point of my life, and I'm extremely happy that I got taken off the street before I hurt someone. I would be put in prison, and it would take me around a year to be sentenced for this crime spree, to which a judge, after sentencing my co-offender to basically almost a life sentence for shooting someone, I was the youngest of the trio. The one man of the group went crown witness on me and the oldest in the group, and me being the youngest, being only 19 years old, the judge practically told me that I have chosen the life of crime, and my chance of rehabilitation at this point into the community is slim and none, and my sentence will reflect that. He sentenced me to 9 years in prison to serve minimum 4.5 years, and I was sent to Woodford Maximum Security Prison at the age of 19. This would be my first time in adult prison serving a lengthy sentence. I came in fresh-faced, I had no tattoos, I'd never been in adult prison before, and this environment was completely different to anything I've ever experienced in my life. Spending years in a maximum security prison would be something I will never forget. And over the years, I would be covered in racist prison tattoos, and the lifestyle that I completely had to accept as my reality in life is nothing like I could even try to explain in this video. I would join a group or a gang of around 16 white men, and we would band together practically. At the time, Woodford Correctional Centre was a prison that was majority adult black inmates who were very hateful towards white men. Woodford is probably very different now. This is the early to mid 2000s, going up to late 2000s, where Woodford was an extremely racist environment. And the kind of things I saw in prison, I'll still never forget. The violence and the fights and just years of brutal experiences that I'll never forget. And the sad thing about prison is, if you don't go into prison and immediately become the person you need to be to survive, you will not last in environments like this. You will get eaten alive. These are not environments for people that are not ready to accept that this is who they are in life and go all the way. If you walk into an environment like this and you don't immediately man up and be the person you need to be on the spot, I couldn't possibly explain what could happen to you. This is maybe something I can go into in another video, but these prisons and these environments are not anything like I've ever experienced in life. And after my lengthy sentence in this prison, I would eventually get parole after serving almost 5 years in maximum security. And the time I spent there still to this day stays with me, and I'll never forget it. Being released to the community after serving almost 5 years in maximum security, I still feel like I struggle in the community to this day, and it's been 7, 8, 9 years since I was in prison. My family and my partner and everyone I know says that I have dealt with it pretty well, but I personally feel like prison is not something you can just ever forget. It's definitely a life or a lifestyle that it'll never leave you as a person. And I put a lot of work into myself to change who I was as a person once I left prison. And still, it doesn't matter how much work you do, you cannot forget that part of your life, especially if you serve a lengthy sentence. It's very hard to let go of that mentality and lifestyle and become a productive member of society and completely leave that life behind. I had to go through years of counseling and therapy and psychologist appointments and rehab, and still to this day I weekly have appointments for my mental health issues, from relating to my drug addictions and the years that I spent in prison. It's never something I'd wish upon anyone. Although there's some strengths that come with having or living that type of lifestyle, yeah, there's not really much I can say, honestly. If you're someone who finds yourself in a situation where you are going to prison and you don't have family or friends, or you're not already involved in that lifestyle, these prisons or this time you will spend in prison will be the most trialing time of your life, and you'll never forget it. It will stay with you for the rest of your life. And that's all I'll really say about that. I'm not going to get too much into detail. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. I won't go too far into my life after leaving prison, leading up to now. There's some things that I will say. I was very lucky to meet a nice girl who I have maintained a relationship with long term, and it's taken a lot of work, more work than I've ever done in my life, to maintain that relationship long term. Definitely the most work I've put into something in my life is being able to just be someone who is capable of having a partner and providing and being a real man and being someone who can look at himself in the mirror. And fortunately for me, all my dreams came true, and we now have a 1-year-old son. And something people can take away from this video: you can come from pretty much anywhere in life, and nothing's stopping you from being who you want to be or achieving what you want to achieve in life. If there's one thing you can take away from this video, is that if there's something you want in life, the only person that's going to hold you back is yourself. And if you beat that demon and you can confront those issues within yourself, there's nothing stopping you from achieving the things you want to in life. And that's definitely something I learned. It took me a long time to get there, but that's definitely something I learnt in life as I built my confidence and rebuilt my life all over again. That's pretty much the video. I don't really know what else I can go into. That's the point where I'm at in life now. Is I'm very comfortable. It's been many years since I was a drug addict and in prison, and my life now compared to the past is like heaven. I have a son, I go to work, I do YouTube as a hobby, I play video games. My life now is like heaven compared to the things I went through in the past. And although all the things I went through in the past were terrible and impact me still to this day, I don't think I would trade it. The experiences I've had, I feel like it makes me more grateful for everything that I have now daily. Even just opening my eyes in the morning and waking up and being next to my son and my partner, it's like waking up in heaven. I don't know. I don't have any other words for it than that. And that's basically where I'm at now in life.